Have you ever stopped and wondered who is truly aware of your thoughts? Who notices your feelings before words even arise? And when you close your eyes, who is watching the silence behind them? These questions have haunted humanity for thousands of years. They touch something deeper than belief or philosophy. They touch the mystery of awareness itself. Hello, my dear friends. Welcome back to Son.Mindfulness. It's a joy to be here with you again. If you're new, this is a place where we explore calm, clarity, and compassion through mindful living. A place where spirituality meets the simple beauty of everyday life. Today's reflection goes to the heart of our existence. We all say, I am thinking, or I am feeling. But have you ever asked who that I really is? Is it your body, your thoughts, your memories, or something even more subtle, the quiet knowing behind it all? In our modern world, we rush, we react, and we rarely stop to see what's looking through our eyes. We identify with every story, every label, every thought, until one day, we feel lost inside our own mind. But what if freedom is not about finding more answers? What if it's about looking clearly at the one who asks the question?
But in understanding.
In this talk, we'll walk together through the Buddha's deepest inquiry. Who is aware of awareness? We'll explore how the illusion of I arises, how consciousness works as a living process, and how mindfulness gently reveals the freedom that was always here. So, stay with us until the end, because somewhere between your next breath and your next thought, something beautiful can awaken. You might begin to see that the peace you've been searching for has never been missing. If these reflections speak to your heart, please subscribe to Son.Mindfulness. Together, we can keep nurturing awareness, compassion, and wisdom in this noisy world. Share your thoughts below. What does awareness mean to you? I'd love to read your reflections. May you be healthy. May you be peaceful. May you be happy and always blessed. Now take a deep breath. Let's begin this journey into the quiet question that can change everything. Part 1. The central question. My dear friends, there's a question that lives at the edge of every quiet mind. A question so simple that most of us overlook it every single day. When you sit still and notice your thoughts, when you watch a memory rise and fade, when you feel the rhythm of your breath, have you ever asked, who is the one that's aware of all this? It sounds like philosophy, doesn't it? But it's not. It's a living question. One that can open a door to freedom if we truly dare to look. I remember, years ago during my first winter as a young monk, I sat in the small meditation hall before dawn. The candlelight flickered, and my breath made small clouds in the cold air. Thoughts came and went, about home, about the sound of the wind, and suddenly I wondered, who is it that's aware of this breathing? It wasn't a question from the mind. It was something deeper, as if awareness itself had turned around to look at itself. You see, we usually live as if there's a me sitting behind the eyes, steering the ship, observing, judging, remembering, deciding. We say, I'm thinking, I'm sad, I'm watching. It feels so normal, so intimate that we never stop to ask whether this I is truly there. But the Buddha, 2,600 years ago, refused to accept what seemed obvious. He kept looking. He wanted to see what lies behind the curtain of experience, to find whether there's really someone there, or just the play of awareness itself. And that's why this question, who is aware of awareness, is not just a spiritual riddle. It's a mirror. When you look into it deeply enough, the mind becomes still. Not because you found an answer, but because you've reached the edge of where thought can go. Try this right now if you wish. Take a soft breath. Feel the air move in and out. Notice the awareness that knows the breath. Then step back just a little more. Notice that you're aware of being aware. Strange, isn't it? Like looking into two mirrors facing each other. Reflection within reflection, endless. You can sense there's awareness of the breath, and awareness of that awareness, and you start to wonder, where does it end? Modern science tells us that the brain creates self-awareness through complex feedback loops. But even the best neuroscientists admit, consciousness itself, the raw knowing, remains a mystery. No one can find its center. No one can point and say, this is where awareness lives. The Buddha would smile at that, because he never said awareness was a thing. He saw it as a process, like a flame dancing in the wind, alive only because conditions come together. When the flame burns, we say, it's fire. But can you take the fire away from the wood, the heat, the air? No. It exists only in relationship. So does awareness. I often tell my students, awareness is not yours. It's what is. You don't own it. You simply notice it. When you sit quietly and thoughts pass like clouds, awareness is the open sky. Clouds come and go, but the sky, it doesn't do anything. It simply allows. Have you ever had a moment when time seemed to stop? Watching a sunset, hearing a child's laughter, or standing by a hospital bed of someone you love? In that moment, the usual me disappears. There's just presence, silent, complete. That's the taste of awareness without the storyteller. So my friends, the question, who is aware of awareness, is not something to answer with words. It's an invitation to look, to stop chasing, stop naming, and simply turn attention back toward itself. You'll find, as the Buddha did, that the one who is looking cannot be found, because it was never a someone. It was life itself, looking through your eyes, breathing through your lungs, aware of its own mystery. If you sit quietly tonight, maybe you'll sense it, that gentle, wordless awareness watching everything arise and fade. And maybe just for a moment, you'll smile and realize there's no need to understand it, just to be with it.
Wisdom arises.
Part 2. The Subtle Bondage of I Am. My dear friends, when the Buddha looked deeply into the nature of the mind, he didn't find chains made of iron. He found something much softer, quieter, yet far more binding. He found the sense of I am.
It is about being
Now, I am sounds innocent, doesn't it? We all say it dozens of times a day. I am tired. I am happy. I am thinking. But this simple phrase hides the most subtle bondage of all, the belief that there must be someone at the center of every experience. It's like a shadow that never leaves us. No matter how much we meditate, study, or pray, that faint sense of I am lingers in the background, whispering, I'm the one who's aware. I'm the one who knows. Even Venerable Kamaka, an enlightened monk spoken of in the scriptures, once admitted, I no longer see myself as body, feeling, perception, or consciousness. Yet still, the notion I am has not vanished. Imagine that. A mind so pure that even the gross attachments are gone, yet the bare sense of being someone still hums beneath everything. I think many of us can feel that too. When we sit quietly, there's awareness of thoughts, sensations, sounds. But beneath all that, there's a faint hum. A feeling like, I am the one sitting here aware of it all. That hum is what the Buddha called asamimana, the conceit of I am. Let me ask you this. Have you ever tried to stop thinking and just be? Perhaps while walking in the garden, you suddenly felt peaceful. But the moment you realized, I am peaceful, the peace faded? That moment is a clue. The very thought I am subtly pulls you out of the direct experience of being. It divides reality into two, one who feels and the thing that's felt. In truth, that division never existed. It's a mental construction, a habit so deep that we've forgotten it's a habit. It's as if awareness keeps drawing a little circle around itself and saying, this is me. Then it spends the rest of its life protecting that circle, defending, fearing, craving, all because of a line it drew itself. You see, this subtle sense of self is the architecture of suffering. Not the loud kind, not anger or greed, but the quiet tension that makes life feel heavy. It's the weight behind every worry. What will happen to me? Will they still love me? What if I lose what I have? The I turns every event into a personal story, every pain into a personal tragedy.
But it no longer
Psychologists today would call this self-referential processing, the mind constantly looping experiences through the lens of me. It's the reason a casual comment can sting for days, or why a small success feels like proof of worth. Modern neuroscience shows that certain parts of the brain, like the default mode network, light up when we think about ourselves, and quiet down during meditation. The Buddha discovered the same truth long before brain scans. When the story of I grows silent, suffering quiets too. Let me share a small story. A woman once came to me after a meditation retreat. She said, "Bhante, I felt such peace on the third day. Then I thought, I am finally getting it," and the peace disappeared. Why? I smiled and said, "Because peace does not belong to you. When you said I am peaceful, the I became heavier than the peace." She laughed, tears in her eyes, because she realized peace isn't something you own. It's what remains when the owner steps aside. So when the Buddha spoke of liberation, he wasn't talking about destroying the person. He was talking about seeing through the illusion of personhood itself. The idea that there's a permanent someone behind your eyes, that's the mirage. And when the mirage is seen for what it is, you don't lose yourself. You simply stop mistaking the reflection for the real thing. Think of a wave in the ocean. It rises, it falls, it has a name, wave. But when it looks closely, it sees it was never separate from the ocean. I am a wave becomes there is only the sea. That's what it means to wake up from the bondage of I am. This is not an idea to force. It's something that ripens gently as awareness deepens. When you notice how every thought begins with I want, I fear, I remember, simply smile. You've already started to see the pattern. And as you keep noticing, something wonderful happens. The pattern loosens, the tension softens, and experience begins to unfold more freely, not belonging to anyone, just happening. Friends, the Buddha once said that seeing the truth of not self is not depressing, it's liberating. Because when there is no I to protect, there is also no I to be hurt. Life still flows, joy and sorrow still visit, but they pass like clouds in an open sky, and the sky never clings. So tonight before you sleep, try this small contemplation. Close your eyes, feel the breath move gently in and out, and whisper inwardly, breathing is happening. Not by me, not for me, just happening. Rest there. You may glimpse a peace that doesn't depend on I am. And when you do, you'll understand why the Buddha called this the deepest freedom. Not escape, not denial, but release from the smallest and most persistent prison, the idea of someone inside who must hold it all together. Part 3. Consciousness as Process. My dear friends, when the Buddha looked into the nature of consciousness, he didn't see a shining soul sitting behind our eyes. He didn't see a little pilot steering our thoughts. He saw something far more mysterious, yet far more ordinary, a process, not a person. You see, most of us believe consciousness is like a lamp, always there, always ours. We think, I am conscious of this sound, I am aware of this feeling. But the Buddha invited us to look more closely. He said, what you call consciousness only arises when conditions come together, and it ceases when those conditions fall apart. Let's try a small reflection. Right now your eyes meet this screen. There's color, shape, and meaning. The eyes, the object, and the knowing, they meet, and that meeting is called I consciousness. When the eyes close or when attention drifts, that particular consciousness fades. It doesn't die. It just no longer arises. Something else takes its place, perhaps sound consciousness or thought consciousness. One after another, moment after moment, a vast unseen dance of arising and ceasing. The Buddha once compared it to a flame. Fire doesn't exist on its own. It depends on the candle, the wax, the oxygen. Remove one of them, and the flame goes out. In the same way, consciousness cannot stand alone. It is born of conditions, contact, sense organ, object, and vanishes when the contact breaks. But here's the miracle. The mind moves so quickly that this constant flickering appears as continuity. Just as a movie looks like a smooth story, though it's really thousands of frames flashing per second, we mistake that seamless flow for a stable me sitting at the center. But if you could slow it all down, thought by thought, sensation by sensation, you'd see that you never actually exist in any single frame. There's only experience, and then another, and another. Modern neuroscience now echoes this insight. Scientists observe that what we call self is a network of mental processes, memory, perception, intention, none of which operate all at once. The sense of a continuous self is a clever illusion, a byproduct of how the brain stitches experiences together. In other words, your consciousness is more like a song being sung than a singer performing. The music exists only as it's played. I remember once meeting an elderly gentleman after a talk in California. He had worked as a watchmaker all his life. He said to me, "Bhante, when I fix a clock, I can see all its gears moving in perfect rhythm. But when I look inside my own mind, I can't find the one turning the gears." I smiled and said, "Perhaps, my friend, that's because the mind is the turning." Think about it. When you hear a sound, there's just hearing. When you see a color, there's just seeing. The I who supposedly does these things only appears after the fact, like a narrator coming in late to explain what already happened. The self is the story we tell about the stream of consciousness, not the source of it. This is why the Buddha said, "Apart from conditions, there is no coming into play of consciousness." And this insight matters deeply, because it means the knower, the one we try to protect, improve, justify, is not the cause but the result. The self isn't the beginning of experience. It's the final echo, the summary. And if it's only an echo, then maybe, just maybe, we don't have to suffer every time the echo changes. Have you ever watched waves on the shore? Each wave rises, shines in the sunlight, breaks, and returns to the sea. But the sea doesn't grieve. It never says, "That wave was me." It just allows, endlessly, effortlessly. Our consciousness is the same. Experience arises and falls. Thoughts shimmer, dissolve. Feelings bloom and fade. There's no need to cling to any of them, because none of them are you. When we understand consciousness as process, compassion naturally follows. Why? Because if I am not fixed, neither is you. Every person you meet is also a process, changing, unfolding, shaped by conditions. How can we hate someone when we see that they too are just passing phenomena? How can we hold grudges when even the one who was hurt is no longer the same person? In deep meditation, when this truth becomes vivid, something extraordinary happens. The sense of time softens. The boundaries between in here and out there dissolve. You see the mind as a shimmering current, sensations, thoughts, feelings, all moving together in perfect harmony, with no conductor in sight. It's not empty in a cold way. It's alive, tender, and astonishingly peaceful. One evening during a long retreat, I remember watching a single breath for almost an hour. The in-breath wasn't my breath. It was just air moving, cells responding, awareness noticing, and suddenly it felt as though life was breathing itself. The sense of me breathing fell away, replaced by a vast stillness that needed nothing to complete it. That's what the Buddha meant by seeing consciousness as process, not something you possess, not something you control, just the play of dependent arising moment by moment. And when that's seen, a great lightness enters the heart. Because if there's no fixed self to defend, there's nothing left to fear losing. Friends, the self is not the engine of consciousness. It's the shadow it leaves behind. When that's understood, the grip of identity begins to loosen. And in that loosening, the first breeze of liberation touches your face. Cool, gentle, and infinitely kind. So tonight, when you rest your head on the pillow, you might whisper softly, "Let this moment breathe itself." No need to hold it, no need to name it, Just watch consciousness dance, arising, vanishing, a river of knowing with no one swimming. That's the quiet miracle of being alive. Part 4. 4 practical steps to investigate, my dear friends. The Buddha never asked us to believe him, he asked us to look, because liberation is not found in ideas, it's found in direct seeing. So how do we look? How do we untie this invisible knot of I am, this subtle illusion that keeps weaving itself into every moment? The path begins right here, with what the Buddha called clear knowing, the gentle art of seeing things as they are, before the mind claims ownership. I want to share with you 4 simple steps. They are not commandments, not something to force. Think of them as 4 small shifts of attention, ways to meet each moment without creating a self around it. You can practice them sitting, walking, or even washing the dishes. Step 1. Label phenomena without labeling a subject. When a thought arises, simply note, thinking. When a feeling stirs, sadness. When you hear a sound, hearing. Notice, you don't add, I am thinking, I am sad. You just name what's happening. This may sound small, but it's revolutionary, because every time we say I am, we reinforce the illusion of a center. But when you name the process instead, you see it for what it is, just a wave arising and fading. A student once told me, Bhante, I tried your method while driving in Los Angeles traffic. I just kept saying, anger, tension, gripping, breathing. And something strange happened. I started smiling. Why? Because the self that was angry dissolved. There was only process, sensations, thoughts, movement. The suffering was in the I that owned them. When ownership dropped, peace returned on its own. Try it sometime. Next time irritation rises, don't say I am angry, just say anger is happening. You'll feel the weight begin to lift. Step 2. Recognize the 3 characteristics: impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, not self. Right after you label, notice what's true about it. This thought, impermanent, changing, fading. This feeling, uncertain, passing. Seeing impermanence in real time is like catching a thief in the act. You don't need to fight or control the mind, just see it slipping away. The illusion of permanence is what keeps the self alive. But when you see that everything is moving, even the observer cannot stand still. I remember once sitting beside a dying tree in the monastery garden. Its bark was peeling, its branches bare. But there, on a single twig, a tiny green leaf had begun to sprout. In that moment, I saw the truth of impermanence. Death and birth sharing the same breath. So it is with our mind. Thoughts die, others are born. And when you see that rhythm, fear begins to fade. Modern psychology calls this cognitive diffusion, the ability to see thoughts as events in the mind, not truths about who you are. The Buddha taught it centuries ago. Seeing impermanence doesn't just reveal truth, it loosens identification. Step 3. Turn awareness upon awareness itself. Sooner or later, the meditator says, but Bhante, there's still something knowing all this. Who is aware of awareness? That's where the heart of the practice lies. When that thought arises, don't think about it, just label gently, knowing. Then see, knowing arising, knowing ceasing. You'll notice something astonishing. Even the awareness you took to be eternal is moving, changing, vibrating. It's not a solid background, it's a living process. This is the moment Venerable Kemaka reached in his realization. He was speaking of that subtle I am, and as he brought mindfulness to it, it dissolved. Awareness looking at awareness saw no boundary, and the illusion of someone knowing vanished like mist in sunlight. In neuroscience, we might say that the brain's self-monitoring loop relaxed. In Dharma we say delusion ended. Different language, same freedom. You can experience this too, in quiet moments. When you think I am aware, pause and ask, who is this I that knows? Look carefully. You'll find only awareness, knowing yet belonging to no one. That's the silence beyond thought. Step 4. Allow natural release. When you truly see impermanence and not self, letting go doesn't require effort. It happens naturally, like unclenching a fist you didn't know was tight. Suppose you're worried about tomorrow. The mind says, I am anxious. But if you look closely, worrying, tension, tightness in chest, arising, passing, and then you notice, knowing. Both the worry and the knowing are processes, neither belongs to anyone. And suddenly, something softens. The story of my worry loses power. What's left is just awareness, open, kind, untouched. From that openness, wise response arises naturally, often more compassionate than the self could ever imagine. I once saw this happen in a nurse who came to a retreat. She worked long nights in hospice care. She said, Bhante, I feel other people's pain too deeply. It's unbearable. I guided her to label gently, feeling, compassion, pain, impermanent. After a few days, she wept and said, now I still care, but it doesn't crush me. That's what letting go looks like. Not indifference, but tenderness without ownership. When wisdom deepens, consciousness and wisdom start to move differently. Consciousness always divides. This is pain, this is me. Wisdom unites. This too is changing, not mine. Consciousness builds a self, wisdom frees it. The Buddha called this panya, seeing things as they truly are. And when you see clearly, you don't need to push life away. Pain, joy, loss, all become teachers. Each one shows impermanence, and through that seeing, peace quietly flowers. So, my dear friends, when you sit tonight, don't try to fix anything. Just notice. Label gently. See change. Notice even awareness shifting, and let go, not by will but by understanding. The self is a misunderstanding, not a sin. When the misunderstanding ends, suffering ends. And in its place, not emptiness as absence, but emptiness as openness, a vast stillness full of life, love, and freedom. That's where practice becomes real. Not in temples or theories, but right here, in the quiet honesty of this very breath.
Have you ever wondered why life
Part 5,
feels
the
heavy
outcome.
after all
Freedom from self-center. My dear friends, when the Buddha's students asked him, Master, what happens when there is no self?
Yes.
He didn't answer with theories. He simply smiled and said, freedom. Not a freedom you gain by effort, not something given from the outside. It's the kind of freedom that comes when the question itself disappears. Because the question, who is aware of awareness, only makes sense as long as we believe there's someone there to answer it. And when that belief dissolves, what remains is just life, unfolding by itself, effortlessly.
Not by believing more.
You see, my friends, as long as we believe there is a me at the center of experience, life feels heavy. Every joy carries the fear of loss. Every success hides the shadow of failure. We keep trying to protect this fragile center, to make it perfect, permanent, safe. But how can we secure something that was never solid to begin with? Have you noticed how exhausting it is to be someone? To maintain a story, to defend opinions, to chase validation? The self is like a spinning wheel. It moves fast but goes nowhere. When the spinning stops, you don't disappear. You rest. This is why the Buddha called it nibbana, not a place, not a reward, but the extinguishing of the flame of I and mine. Not annihilation, but release. What dies is illusion.
To see clearly.
What remains is peace.
Roots.
When you see awareness as process, arising, passing, belonging to no one, something shifts deep inside. It's like realizing the music you were dancing to was never coming from outside. It was echoing through you all along. And suddenly, everything slows down. The air feels softer. The ordinary becomes radiant. You look at a tree and no longer think, I am looking at it. There's just seeing, vivid, alive, whole. You hear a bird, and for a moment there's only sound. No separation, no observer, just this. One of my students once told me, Bhante, I think I had a small taste of what you describe. I was sitting on my porch feeling lonely, and suddenly realized the loneliness was happening, but there was no one lonely. There was just the ache, the wind, the breath, all moving together, and it felt free. Yes, that's it. The heart glimpses that suffering never belonged to anyone. It was always a play of conditions. And when you see that clearly, compassion blossoms by itself. Because when there's no I, there's also no you. There's only experience, endlessly transforming. You see that others suffer as you did, lost in the dream of self. And instead of judgment, you feel tenderness. The heart becomes vast enough to hold the world. Modern science is beginning to echo this truth in its own language. Researchers studying long-term meditators find that when the sense of separate self dissolves, brain activity associated with stress and self-referencing quiets down. The mind becomes more integrated, more empathic, more resilient. But the Buddha didn't need brain scans to see it. He simply sat under a tree, turned awareness upon itself, and realized there was never anyone there. And what remains, when there's no one left to suffer, is peace. Not the peace of escape, but the peace of total intimacy with what is. Some people fear that no self means emptiness, like losing everything that makes us human. But it's the opposite. When the walls of me and mine fall away, life floods in, colors seem brighter, laughter rings deeper, tears come easier, but they don't drown you, they cleanse you. Because now, even sorrow is holy. Freedom doesn't mean you stop feeling, it means you stop resisting. Pain still arises, but it doesn't wound. Pleasure still comes, but it doesn't bind. Everything dances, and you let it. That's the ease the Buddha spoke of, the ease of not having to be somebody in every moment.
Is the awareness that knows all of
Let me share one last reflection. A man once asked me after a talk, "Bhante, if there's no self, who lives, who dies?" I smiled and said, "When the wave dissolves, does the ocean die?" This is what the teachings call the deathless. Not because the body lives forever, but because what you are, this knowing, this presence, was never born as a separate thing. When the illusion of separation ends, what's left is timeless. In that seeing, even death loses its sting. What was never born cannot die. What was never owned cannot be lost. And so the heart rests. My dear friends, if tonight you sit quietly and awareness turns softly back upon itself, don't look for answers, just look. Notice the breath rising, thoughts appearing, sounds passing through. Ask gently, can I find the one who is aware? And when you look, you'll find only knowing. Radiant, silent, without owner. No watcher, no watched. Only the miracle of awareness aware of itself. Stay there. Let that stillness wash through you. Let the burden of being someone fall away. And in that falling, you'll taste the same freedom the Buddha discovered beneath the Bodhi tree. Not a theory, not a belief, but a peace so simple it almost feels like nothing at all.
I don't know who I am.
Yet in that nothing, everything shines. This, my friends, is the end of suffering. Not because life becomes perfect, but because you no longer stand apart from it. You've stopped fighting the river, and finally you're flowing with it. So breathe. Smile. Let awareness rest in itself. The question, who is aware of awareness, has done its job. It led you back home, to the place where there was never anyone to leave and nowhere else to go. This is freedom.
but invited us to look directly inward.
Closing reflection, the gift of seeing. My dear friends, if you've come this far, I want to thank you.
When we see each
Truly, you've walked with me through some quiet, sacred territory. You've looked into awareness itself. You've dared to ask the question most people never ask. Who is the one aware of awareness? That question has taken us on a long journey. At first, it seemed simple. Then it opened into mystery. We discovered that what we call I is not a thing but a habit. A pattern of thought, a soft whisper that says, this is me. And when we looked closer, we found the whisper fading. What remained was just awareness, open, free, unowned. That is the essence of all 5 parts we explored together. In the beginning, we asked the great question. Then we saw the subtle bondage of I am. We learn that consciousness is a process, like fire depending on its fuel. We practice simple ways to see clearly, labeling, noticing change, letting go. And finally, we saw what happens when the center dissolves. Freedom. Not the kind of freedom that removes pain, but the kind that removes the sufferer. A stillness where life can breathe again. Take a moment. Feel that in your heart. Can you sense that open space behind all experience? The place that watches without judgment?
Your sharing may be a light.
That is where peace lives. That is where you've always been. When I share these teachings, I often think of my own mother. She used to sit quietly by the window, just watching the light change. Sometimes she'd whisper, "The world is so beautiful when you stop trying to hold it." I didn't understand then. But now I do. Do you have a moment like that in your life? When everything just was, no striving, no naming, no I? Maybe it was holding a grandchild. Maybe it was watching the sunset after a long day. That's the same awareness we're talking about. It's not far away. It's right here. If any part of this teaching touched you, even a little, I'm deeply grateful. Because seeing even one glimpse of truth can change everything. It softens how we walk through the world. It teaches us to listen more, to love more, to expect less. Have you noticed that when awareness deepens, gratitude naturally appears? Gratitude for this breath, for this body that ages and still serves, for the people who cross our path, even for the struggles that awaken wisdom. I feel that gratitude now, for you, for every heart that listened, reflected, maybe even smiled in recognition. You are the reason these words have meaning. But don't let this be just another talk you've heard. Let it become something you live. The next time you feel hurt, pause and ask, who is aware of this pain? Then wait. Watch. You might find that the pain is there, but the sufferer is not. Try this when you wake in the morning. Before thoughts rush in, simply notice. Awareness is already here. You didn't create it. You don't control it. You simply are it. Isn't that remarkable? How something so ordinary can be so sacred? My friends, thank you for sharing this journey with me. If something here has opened your heart, please share your reflection in the comments. I'd love to know what touched you or what you discovered along the way. If you wish to keep exploring these quiet truths, subscribe to Son.Mindfulness. This community exists to walk beside you, gently, honestly, with kindness. May you be well. May your days be peaceful. May your mind rest in clarity. May your heart stay open to life. And may every breath remind you, awareness is already free. Until next time, my dear friends, be kind, be curious, be still. Thank you.